You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today we are doing another edition on Reddit. And the reason for that is so many questions out there. There's a lot of things going on. Where are these LLMs? The amount of search taking place continues to go up. And a lot of the questions and how people are searching, those answers aren't necessarily on retailer.com yet or on brand.com. And we can get into that a little bit. And so where do they end up? They end up on one of the probably the largest forum for answering questions where people can ask whatever they want and community answers them. And that's Reddit. So again, inviting Jonny Waite back over at RECHO, probably the leading Reddit agency out there right now. They have huge clients, just all around, probably the smartest person I know in the space. So, but Jonny, I'll let you jump in. You want to tell people
Sure.
what you guys do over at RECHO and all that stuff, and then we can kind of kick off the conversation.
Of course. Thanks for having me again, Aaron. So to reintroduce myself to anybody that didn't listen to our last session, I'm Jonny Waite, co-founder and CEO of RECHO. At RECHO, we are maybe the only, or at the very least, one of three full-service white hat Reddit agencies specializing specifically in Reddit in the US, maybe the world. As Aaron said, we work with mid-market and enterprise brands, a lot of which you know and love. We're servicing these clients in an authentic way to help them grow on Reddit the way that Reddit asks you to, the moderators ask you to, helps the community, helps build authentic conversation, buying decisions, etc. So excited to be here again.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. So things I want to make sure that we get to. One, why is Reddit growing so fast? Two, how do people interact without, getting, offending the groups and the threads that are already out there? The other one is the advertising piece. So just everybody, those are those things that I get asked all the time. And so I asked Jonny, can I bring you on and just pepper you with questions? And he's like, sure. So I'll give a quick lay of the landscape, Jonny, and then I'd love your thoughts on it. Tons of conversations right now around optimizing the digital shelf for the LLMs, whether that's Alexa for shopping or Sparky or Chat or Claude, whatever, Perplexity, whatever it might be. And so the interesting thing is people are searching fundamentally differently. And with that, they are then going, they're searching both, on a retailer.com or off retailer.com inherently differently. And you can't then get all of that content into your PDP. Mm-hmm. And so there's this weird optimization that's trying to take place, and you can't answer all of those questions. And when they do that, and they update all that content to reflect, the answers that are popping up in these LLMs, what ends up happening is 60% of the search is still done in the normal search bar, and they don't get the pop that they need. And I totally understand that. That's one of these reasons I'm throwing this out there is why I think Reddit is such a big thing. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as a whole.
Yeah, I think there's a few things to touch on there. So yeah, there's what is the share of voice overall? Like you're on an LLM, you're on Google, that's going to, I think if you just look at an aggregate, if you just took Google and ChatGPT as standalones, you have a majority of the population. Majority is still, and I think part of the reason that Gemini is number 2 behind ChatGPT is because a lot of folks use Google products and it's just inherently, what they do. But as far as optimizing for it, I think there's a couple interesting data points that kind of tell you why Reddit's important and why it's so valuable in this larger sphere. So like one, when you Google something, a lot of times the result from Google is kind of an LLM answer. You're getting a Google AI overview, or if you're on mobile, especially, you're on Google AI mode, sometimes without realizing it. And I think for the layman consumer, they probably don't. And the problem there is a few things. As a traffic driver, Google has a lot better data. You can look at Search Console, analytics, et cetera. Most businesses use those. You have the crocodile effect of impressions going up, clicks going down. So, if you're optimizing for visibility in search, i.e. Google, or the LLMs, you have kind of a similar problem, right? Visibility without action. And then even when you do, especially in LLM, so like, coming off of Google into something like ChatGPT, the result of the .com, so retailer.com or brand.com, isn't always a validated answer, right? So you ChatGPT something, okay, like X brand came up, I'm going to get ported to their website, and it's going to give me why they're promoting themselves and why they're the best at whatever I'm doing. So I think a really important metric is I think it's either eMarketer or Statista. I'd have to remember where I was reading it, but it's about 60 to 70% of people that validate AI answers go to Reddit. So regardless of the citation factor of like, we're optimizing for Reddit or we're naturally in Reddit, somebody ChatGPT something or Google something, Reddit is going to show up as the number 2 cited source in Google, number 1 in ChatGPT, and number 1 in all the other LLMs. Even if you're not showing up there, they're still going back to Reddit manually, which is why X term plus Reddit is, I think it's like the third most Google term, because it's this funny mechanism. They see something in ChatGPT, they either go straight to Reddit or they Google it to see where it exists in Reddit and then click through to that result to validate their answer. So it's like, it's not just visibility for visibility's sake. I think within like the world of GEO and optimizing for AI citations, it's like, yes, that's important for discoverability, but also like, where's the credibility layer, right? So like, I think people are becoming attuned to the fact that like, if you go to a social platform, you're going to get blasted with ads or you're going to be retargeted. If you go to ChatGPT, you're going to get a lot of .coms that are optimizing for LLMs. It's not necessarily the best objective answer. So to filter all that out, where they go, they land on Reddit, and that's why it continues to grow the way it has, in my opinion.
No, that's interesting. If I go back to how I search now, though, as well, I understand, but I'm searching fundamentally differently, and how much context I'm putting in to an answer or into a search, right? I'm not just looking for, running shoe, right?
Yeah.
Or best running shoe.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I live in Michigan. It's coming up the wintertime. I need a high traction shoe. I'm mid 40s. I run 3 miles a day. Blah. I put all that detail in there.
Yeah.
And that, in my mind, is not, that amount of data is not captured on retailer.com or brand.com.
Right. And there's the aspect too of affirming it, right? There's the bias, there's the learning bias from LLMs, if you're a logged in user. Like, I'll give you a very funny example, but I think it's a good one. My wife was building her website for her brand and optimizing it for search and everything else. And being almost 20 years in the search space, I gave her my feedback. So it went through all of it. She's like, I built a lot of the best practices through ChatGPT and Claude. I went through it and I said, this is kind of right. It's not best. She's like, what do you mean? Claude and ChatGPT said this is like ideally how to do it. And I said, just prompt it with my credentials, what I'm saying versus what they recommended, and see what it says. And the answer was, actually, Johnny's absolutely right. Da 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 da. But it was very confident in its direction that the information it was giving was the absolute best. And I think that's happening with the buyer, the researcher, whatever part of the consideration funnel a user's in. You get an answer that's very confident in ChatGPT, Claude, whatever LLM you're using, even Google to AI models, and you're not necessarily confident in where that information is coming from, or if it's just giving you an answer to give you an answer, and do real humans back that up?
And then, were you saying earlier that when people are doing that search and it shows up, they're then directly going to Reddit to do their own research as well?
Yeah.
So it's more. Okay, I get it, because you were saying this is more than just visibility in the LLMs. It's important. Like, this is a spot it might go to help answer it, but in the end result, they still want to go look at that Reddit thread to just validate what's going on.
Yeah, think of the psychology of let's use like ChatGPT. you ChatGPT something, there's a couple cited source, one of them's the .com. You go to the .com, it tells you why its product's the best. It has, and I'm not saying every brand is like their website is just this like mess of self-promotion, but they're obviously going to say
biased.
We're the best, right? And which they should. It's different than if you ChatGPT something, Reddit shows up as a source, and then the brand is validated in Reddit. Because once you take that jump into Reddit, now the user psychology is changed into, okay, now I'm getting into objectivity as opposed to what I already expect from the brands.com. And then that credibility layer is like, okay, well, Reddit's a self-governed platform. People are giving their unfettered opinion on this, and they say this brand's good. So, that's arguably a lot more credible in the buying decision than just going to the website.
But then there's a good chunk of the time that, and people know this, like Reddit's wrong. It's got your brand wrong. You have to then be. I'm getting to the point where, as I'm going through this, you have to be active in Reddit. You're either going to do it internally, or you have to go get a Reddit agency, which blows my mind. That's something that I mean, you live in space, so you see it on a daily basis. You go back 2 or 3 years to say, hey, you're going to need a Reddit agency. People are like, what? That doesn't even make sense. It's a platform. It's out there. But because there's that much validation, you have to be out in the community on Reddit, or you can't just jump in. You have a social media listing tool. You see a complaint, drop in, parachute in, shoot a response and get out. That's not how these threads work. They're communities. You need that now to maybe correct your story. Yeah, I mean, there's two sides of the coin with brands on Reddit, because that's what we're talking about. There is, yes, any opinion can be given. So when you get into a given topic in a given community, you don't know what you're going to get, right? Does this person know what they're talking about? Is their experience causation or correlation, right? That's a big one. But then there's the other side of the brands offering, the brands that do it well, right? They listen to the tone of the community. They're active listening, in written format to what's being discussed. And then they provide their POV on a specific subject, but with the R&D and all the resources that come with the brand developing a product or service or whatever it is, to give a more truthful, straightforward answer to a given topic, right? So when you're in Reddit doing that research, yes, it's in a sea of people just giving their opinion, and they're anonymous, so you don't know how credible they are. And the one credibility is if you have an official brand, if they're doing it the wrong way, you have moderators to push them out for self-promotion, spamming. They're doing it the right way. They're actually one of the most objective answers with, in a lot of instances, like, data and resources and things to help users answer the question they're answering. And they're just meeting that user in the community that they prefer to interact. So it's like one of these areas where it's like, meet them out in the wild, help them where they want to be helped. And then that in a way is promoting yourself because you're helping your consumers. Such an interesting space. Can you pick this apart, like from a Reddit agency standpoint, right? And this is not, we don't ever do the sales pitches on here, but I'm incredibly curious because I understand how an affiliate marketing agency works. I understand how a TikTok agency works. I understand paid search, social. I understand traditional performance marketing. I get that. I've been inside it, RFP'd it, had those conversations. The question I get a lot of times is like, what is a Reddit agency even doing?
Yeah, well, that's a loaded question. I think a lot of it is demystifying. I think a lot of it starts with us demystifying the platform for the brands we work with, of like, this is what it is, this is what it isn't. Understanding the long-term value of Reddit as opposed to the short-term gamification. Because that is what everybody's, you're looking for the quick win, the dopamine hit, what's going to solve my problem tomorrow, silver bullet. I do think that Reddit falls in those categories sometimes. Like, I know that we want to talk about advertising later, but like, Reddit is a very powerful advertising platform as an alternative or test budget with an immediate mix. So it's not a Google or Meta replacement yet, but it is a, in my opinion, and I'm extremely biased because I run a Reddit agency, but it's a lot more powerful as far as influence, buying decisions, volume of daily active users and weekly active users, and the accelerated growth, when compared to like an X, a Snap, Pinterest, etc. So there's that aspect to it. There's also, for brands, like where is the buyer's psychology and habits, like where are they changing? Like, and again, this isn't to say that like what I'm about to say is not to say like don't invest in these channels. I'm a marketer, agnostic marketer at heart. But I do think that in the world of influencers, affiliate marketing, all of that, there's a credibility layer that people I think are getting really attuned to. Of so and so says to buy this. Well, is it an affiliate? Is it an influencer partnership? Is it an affiliate link? Like, are they actually giving me an opinion that I should trust, or are they just making money off of that collaboration with X brand or X product? And so, in brands trying to insulate themselves for, I think, where the larger population is going, people are looking for, okay, are you going to be a brand that actually helps me solve my problem? And can you make that argument, because I have a real world case? And now, with the advent of LLMs, it gets extremely specific. Like you said with your running shoe example, it's not like, hey, Nike, just tell me if you're the best running shoe or not. Nike, do you have a shoe that's reasonably priced that will hold up in cold water? That's, I'm going to do cross country training, so I need it to be somewhat water repellent, is going to be long lasting, for X age group and X temperature, etc. These are my, this is what I prefer. And that's really where like influencer marketing affiliate is not going to hit that, right? Like they may randomly, like you have an influencer in Michigan's like, I'm in Michigan and I use this running shoe. Great. Now you've gotten that. But as far as like the nuance of like daily conversations with extreme nuance and extreme detail, that's where brands can kind of future proof. So we're really like our whole purpose of existing is like the buying intent's there, the users are there, but it's a self-moderated, anonymous platform. So how do you unlearn what 10, 20, 50 years of marketing has taught you to really succeed in Reddit? And that's essentially what we're trying to do.
Well, as you're talking, I'm just going through it. It's also an interesting platform because it ends up being a source of truth in a way for a search result that's not there. The brand.com, people see it out there, but they know it's biased inherently.
Yeah.
It's not really like trusted source of truth. They want community vetted source of truth. Again, like you said, the influencers there, the Meta ads, the Amazon ads, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, we're inundated all these different ways around marketing, but we know inherently it's biased. And it's interesting that it's this forum, and it makes sense why it's growing. It's a forum that you as a brand can actually jump into and actually interact with people real time and tell your brand story.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And I get asked this question a lot of like, there's a lot of the news about Reddit and Google's licensing agreement right now, which who knows? But like, will Reddit continue to be one of these powerhouse, data sources and content sources and et cetera? And I think, it's really based on, I'll draw a comparison, like in the SEO world, when Google would make a big update on how, websites are ranked and authority and credibility. And if you look at like the major thing, not everything Google ever did, but like a lot of the major things and shifts they did, it was all based on like where users were going, right? Like mobile first indexing. It's because more people started using smartphones to get on the internet. It wasn't because Google decided that. It was just like users are telling us this. Now it's becoming commonplace. We're going to change our algorithm. And I think same thing is true with citing Reddit as a source. It's not a new platform. It's not all of a sudden Reddit changed who it was as a company, and then now everybody uses it. It's because it was always this treasure trove of like you know, people naturally interacting, and then in the advent of like LMs and AI and all this other stuff, that's what they need to source, because otherwise they're just relying on either AI slop or promotion or something that never gives anybody an answer to what is the best X for my specific use case.
It, I'm glad we're picking this apart, because as we're going through it, it might be one of the most authentic places for you as a brand to help tell your story and your narrative.
Yeah.
In a very specific setting, right? In a thread specific to your group and people who care about your product.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. How does advertising work?
Well, I think there's a few aspects to advertising. So,
sorry to shift gears on you.
No. All good.
I know we could probably talk for 2 hours on this, but
I think I always frame advertising in two basic ways for people think about Reddit. One is, if you are looking to get into Reddit, but you are, like many brands are, and this is how it goes. We invest in Reddit, we put $1 in, we need to see $3 back pretty quickly. Organic is not your starting point. It can be the thing that builds the biggest ROI, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So testing it as a test channel, a substantial, but not, like I said, not a meta Google replacement, I think is a worthwhile test. And I think partly because I always ask the question when we're on a sales pitch or we're onboarding brand, they'll be like, we've advertised on Reddit before, didn't work very well. And I say, okay, well, how long ago did you try this? And sometimes it's 2-3 years ago. And I'm like, well, in the last 3 years, actually less than 3 years, like 2.5, 2 years and 9 months, Reddit's gone from 200 million active users to 500 million weekly. And the demographic shifted to, almost half women. And it's not this, excuse the term, it's fine, like gamer basement dweller, crypto bro, thing that, or so impassioned that nobody can, get a word in edgewise about a particular topic. It's now like, the user, it's who you would expect. Like, it's almost 40% of it is Gen Z, so it's a big Gen Z. What people would expect, millennial, it's huge there, but it's 15% of the platform is 50 plus, so it's like it's kind of for everybody. So in hitting and it's got 144,000 communities. So chances are, if you're trying to hit your user group in a way that from an advertising standpoint, you're probably hitting a community you haven't hit before if you're being creative about it. And we always say we see that a lot in the attribution side of things, of like, Google and Meta and TikTok are always battling for, if you look in Google, you get X attribution, but actually Meta says this and the math doesn't align. Reddit tends to fall outside of that. So you advertise, you hit your effective ROAS that you're looking for, and you look at it and you're like, okay, a lot of last click, a lot of assisted conversions. A lot of the assisted conversions sat next to like direct channel or organic search and things like that. So you are hitting a net new group of people. And then, to not be long-winded or pseudo long-winded, the other side of advertising is getting your feet wet. So either you start with organic, start to understand the platform, you see where there's buying intent with these communities, and a couple months in, you see, hey, there's a lot of commercial intent in these communities. We want to amplify that and accelerate that with advertising. It's a great way to do that. So I think thinking about Reddit, I think in the larger just marketing sense, like it's worth testing out to like diversify your media mix. It's still relatively cheap, very easy to get into to under $2 CPC. Oftentimes with not breaking the bank type of budget, you can hit depending on your category, but most categories, hit an effective 3-4x blended ROAS pretty early on, is very effective that way. But I would also say, from the sense of like getting net new acquisition, right? Not just, with retargeting and Meta and all these things constantly scraping the bottom of your funnel until it dries up. Reddit is a good place to gain some new customers that don't exist in the other channels or not buying from the other channels.
Yeah. Awesome. What didn't we get to today? What are the things that you commonly run into with brands? What do people get wrong with Reddit or
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, because I get asked this question, like, why don't you have a lot of competition as an agency? And I think there's two answers to that. One I talked about before is people are looking for that quick gamification. There's certainly agencies out there do that. It just doesn't work well with Reddit. It backfires. I think the other aspect of it is, we've done a few closed digital campfires and articles recently about just like the apprehension of Reddit, right? We don't understand this group. We don't understand the platform. We don't even know where to get started. Is there a lot of nuance? There is, but if you go on the platform, it's not like maneuvering it and the different functionalities is like way simpler than like Facebook, which everybody's used to. You don't have marketplace and all these like 8 billion options and all these other things. You have a user profile, you have communities that you can engage in. They have a set of rules so that the community can, continue to grow without AI spam and brands just promoting people being aggressive and nefarious and all these other things. Now, it's not perfect, but as a brand, stopping and listening and thinking about where you fit, like really taking like a hard look and then saying, okay, like if we want to be in here, it's worthwhile to really take the time and understand it, can yield great results. Cause like, even outside of social channels with influencers, even if you're doing it organically, with like a TikTok video that like and I'm not a TikTok expert, but like, it begins trending again and all these types of things. Like you have a little bit of boom bust cycle you can get out of a couple videos, and that can be great. And you can build, your follower list and all this kind of stuff. But it requires this like constant churn of content. Reddit's not different in that way. It's just how it's indexed. So like, brands that are engaging with us right now and just starting off, some of what we're addressing, either positively or negatively, is a thread that's visible on Google or visible on Reddit or some other or in ChatGPT, like 9 years old, right? So even when Reddit wasn't this powerhouse, and that's I think the power. Like if you run an AMA in Reddit, or you have a post that goes viral, like that's going to exist. I don't want to say forever because I don't know how the internet's going to shake out. But that URL is indexed with a high level of authority and it's discoverable. So what you're doing today, while organic may take a minute to like really build up to this like ROI powerhouse, which it will, that content is not going to go away. And it gives an objectivity and community building. Like we have a brand right now. I won't say them by name because I didn't ask permission, but they were, if you Googled or researched like what are like the top 5 or top 10 like biggest use cases for a brand succeeding organically on Reddit, this brand would always show up. And the reason they engage with us is, their subreddit was the use case, their own community from the brand, but they haven't used it for 5 years and it still comes up as a case study. Now we're going to take that over to like revitalize and accelerate it again. But even though they haven't been active for 5 years, that's still reference. Is like, this is the brand to look to for what you should do to build your own community. So it's really interesting as a platform that way as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking way back when I was on the brand side, especially in big corporate America, this decision, at an executive level of whether or not we're to go, even on Amazon back in the day,
Yeah.
right? And the conversation I ended up having with them was like, with the executive team was, there's already a conversation about our brand and our products on Amazon. And the decision here is not whether or not the conversation is going to take place. It's whether or not we're going to control and influence the conversation around what's taking place with our brand and the products and the quality, and join that conversation. But just as you're talking here, that's what's playing out for me real time. Is Reddit is that next space. There's already conversations. If it's not even specific about your brand, which it probably is, it's about your target customer.
Yeah.
Right? And there's the conversation is already there. Are you going to be there and tell your story and be part of it? Or are you just going to ignore it? And in the past, it could be ignored because it didn't show up that much. It didn't really matter. But now the harvesting level of these LLMs.
there's just, you can't ignore it, right? You can, but it's, I think, to folks' detriment. I do think, like, whether it's the brands that work with us or active on their own, I don't want to just say it's like, this spammy self-promotion, but I think brands that are really spending time building a presence on Reddit right now, and the influence of what it does for AI and all these other things, like, I do want to couple it with that. But I think those are the brands in, like, mid next year, maybe end of next year. But I do think it could be as soon as mid next year, where the competitors are going to be like, what did they do that we didn't do? Because, like, they built a moat around themselves we don't understand. Like, what is it? Like, we thought we were doing everything right. And I do think Reddit's going to be one of those critical elements. Because it does change. You can't just close your eyes and hope that things stay the same forever. And that's just, Reddit just happens to be one of those platforms right now. So
I couldn't agree more. So we're getting to the end of time here. Jonny, again, thanks for your time today. Everybody listening in, Jonny Waite, look him up on LinkedIn, follow him there. RECHO.co, right?
Yep.
Reach out. Worth having a conversation. This is a space that I think now is uber important. And again, I wouldn't have said that a year and a half or 2 years ago, but now it's incredibly important. I think it should be top of mind for everybody. But Jonny, thanks so much for your time today. Thanks for all the information. We'll have you back on maybe next quarter and kind of get an update on where things are shaking out. Sound good?
Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks, my friend.
Bye.